If you're anything like me, then your road to playing D&D has been a long and strange one. I wanted to play when I was a kid, but I didn't know anything about it, and when my parents looked into it, they were hit with a lot of the old satanic panic and thought it might be witchcraft, and so they leaned me towards other things. And honestly, I didn't start playing until I was about 30 years old. And I didn't buy the books at first. I looked up, how to play. I listened to some podcasts and kind of got the gist of how I wanted to play. And then I got some friends and family together and we played. And it went really well. But one of the things I wish I had known then was that with a couple of 3D printed things, it can go a lot better. So let's talk about those. Now, everyone's list of what their priorities are when it comes to D&D is going to be different. But for those of you who are trying to look and find a place to start, this is where I would start. These are the first 5 things that I would print. Number 1 on our list is going to be characters. Every D&D party is going to be filled with characters. Random characters. Hard to find characters. And so you can do your best. You can go online. You can go to Thingiverse and you can type in some models. You can find something close to what you need. Okay, and Thingiverse has hundreds of models that you can choose from. Okay, you can go there and you can find your gnome monk or whatever it is you're looking for. But there is not a lot of choice to pick from. And as sad as it is, you can't blame the internet for that. Every person who decides to play D&D wants to play a different character, who uses different weapons, who does things a little bit differently from anyone else. And so if you're just looking for free and for what's out there, go to Thingiverse. There are thousands of different models to choose from, and generally you can find something that fits what you're looking for. Now, if none of those are what you want, there are always options like Hero Forge and Eldritch Foundry. And what those are is they're online character creators where you go online, you find the body style, you find the race, you find whatever it is you want this character to look like. You can mold them, you can model them, you can change how they're standing, you can change what they're holding, you can give them pouches, you can give them just about anything you can think of. And this will allow you to create those individual characters that no one else has. And, for a cheap price, you can download the model and print it yourself. And for a little more, and I say a little more, but I think it's like something around $20, you can ship the model to your home. Okay. They have memberships that allow you to print multiple things every month and different things like that. But to start out, to get your party, you can do this option, and then everyone has the character they want. And obviously, as the DM, it's not your responsibility to do this, but if you're like me, then sometimes it's a lot easier to just print them, get them out, get them on the table, painted, do everything yourself. If you can get your group to help, that's the best. And I envy you. Okay, number 2. The second thing that I would print or buy, whatever you're going to do, is your bad guys. And now I don't mean your 20 cultists, your 30 orcs, your entire village of, zombies, whatever it is. I mean your big bads. I mean the bosses that you're going to be fighting. Yes, the other enemies can come with that, but if you're just starting out, print the big boss that they're going to fight. Or the next one, and that way at least you'll have that and you'll be ready for your campaigns as fast as it's going. If it's moving a little slower, print your zombies, print your orcs. But until that time, you can use placeholders. You can use dice if you wanted for the little minions. As long as you have that big bad that everyone can see, everything will move a lot smoother. Now, if you're looking for a place to find your big bads, to find them, of course you can go to Thingiverse. Like I said before, every monster from the monster manual is on Thingiverse. Is it the quality you want? That's up to you. Is it the style you want? Again, that's up to you. And if you want to start branching out and finding other places, My suggestion is going to be Patreon. You can go to Patreon and you can be a patron for 1 month and get 3 completely different big bad guys with their minions, with terrain, with, whatever you're looking for $10. Okay, now of course you got to print these things, and I haven't really talked about that a ton, but if you're printing out your characters and you're printing out small minions, you're going to want to use a resin printer. Can you do it with FDM? Yes. It's going to take longer, and they're not going to look quite as good, but you can definitely do it with an FDM printer. When I started, all I had was an FDM printer, and I printed everything with it, and some of the stuff turned out fantastic. Okay, so feel free to use either one. With the FDM printer, you might want to bump up how big your characters are a little bit, but it's going to cost you a couple cents to do that, and they'll just look a lot better if they're, not your 28 millimeter, but your 35 millimeter, something like that. And once those are all done and you have those on the board, now your characters can see who they're fighting. They can see where their character is, on the board around the enemy. If the enemy turns around, they'll know exactly where they're facing the enemy or facing away from the enemy. And so just having that big bad on the field is going to make it feel much more alive for many of them. Okay, number 3 on the list is going to be terrain. You have your characters, you have your enemies, and now you need somewhere to put them. Okay, for the longest time, I just used a grid piece of paper that I put on, the table, and I drew out the caverns that they were in or the dungeon that they were in, which is great. You can still do that. I'm not telling you to print an entire dungeon. That is a huge endeavor. Does it look awesome? Yes, it's amazing, but you don't have to do that. But if you just have a couple trees that you can put on the map or a couple houses for your village, all of a sudden the board is alive. Your characters aren't asking you questions about what does the house look like, or
where am I? Where am I?
What's the room look like? You're putting them inside of it, and they go inside of it, and they look around. Do they see the treasure chest? Do they see, the person hiding, waiting to kill them? They got to roll a perception check, But with these things on the table, it just brings another dimension to playing the game. And you can find these on Thingiverse. Yes, they're on Patreon and other places like that. And sure, if you're looking for something specific, that might be the place to go. But there are full villages and trees and forests and shrubs and rocks and bridges and caves and everything on Thingiverse. And the reason that I put these number 3 before 4 and 5 is that because terrain is really easy to get ready. You print up a house, you hit it with a couple coats of paint, and it's ready for the board. It doesn't have to be super detailed or anything like that. Terrain is usually pretty quick to get ready. And when you have it down, it brings the game to life, especially for younger players. I can't stress that enough. I play with my kids and multiple nieces and nephews, and just being able to see it is huge for them. Number 4 on the list is going to be our NPCs. Okay, they're the characters that nobody plays, but if you're going to a tavern, it's nice to have it populated. It's nice to have the bartender. It's nice to have the stranger sitting in the chair in the shadows. It's nice to have your boisterous bards or whatever it is that needs to be there, and you can print those. The reason I put them number 4 on this list is that NPCs are those things that you typically don't use over and over and over again. You go to one village once. And so going through all the work of finding the models, printing the models, and painting the models is a lot to do. But it is one of those little things that makes a difference. Makes it feel like it's not just your party in a world of enemies, but your party in an actual world with other people. And if you're the DM, kind of helps you remember the voices and things like that, because you got a face to attach it to now, and it's not just one of the hundreds of faces that's floating around in your imagination. So NPCs, you can find them on Thingiverse, you can find them on Patreon. If you want one to look a particular way, you can build your own. But ultimately, they should be one of the last things that I think you should put on the table. Last, and certainly not least, is going to be your props. And I know that may sound weird, but there's nothing quite as cool as congratulating your party on slaying the owlbear and handing them the claw from the owlbear. Letting them hold that, letting them have a trinket in their hands, letting them see the severed hand that they cut off. This is actually just a thing, but still, thing could be a prop, or the tavern, letting them feel and see the mugs and things that are in the tavern. When you play D&D, you think of the greats. You think of those people of the podcasts and the different D&D campaigns, that have spanned thousands of hours, and the way that the world is brought to life. And being able to tell them about the things in that world as a DM is huge. And it's amazing, and it's so cool. But when you can show it to them, it's even better. And then by the end of your journey, not only do you have just the memories, but you also have the things left behind, the trophies you won, depending on what props you use, the necklaces, the rings that they found, little things that can bring the characters to life for the people playing the game and make it so they never forget. And when you're done, if you want to make a shrine to your D&D campaign that you can put on the wall or just put on a shelf, before you start your next adventure, you can always look back on the things that you accomplished beforehand. And so props are just a really cool thing. You don't have to spend a ton of time on them. You can use them for various things, and it just makes the bad guys, the trophies won, and everything else like that seem so much more important when they actually get to hold it in their hand and see it. And as a DM, you can do a lot of fun things with them. These are the first 5 things that I would print. These are the first 5 things that I did print for my group. And, once you have certain things done, you move on. Once your party's completed, you don't have to create anyone. You don't have to create any more people unless you're successful as a DM at killing some of them off. Then you have to do that, for yourself. So maybe those ones you should take care of. But ultimately, you can just keep making more and more and more until you have your big bads, you have your people, and, you can plan for the future. You can print 3 different big bads, and maybe your people will only fight one, but you've got them. And they can come back later and come back in another campaign. So it's never something lost. And if you spend enough time on them, painting them and making them look great, they're small pieces of art that you can keep forever. You can put them on your shelf. You can enjoy them forever and remember what they led you to and what they led your friends to and the fun times that you had with them. So that's where I would start. And as always, as you're printing these things, don't spend so much time making your world that you forget to spend some time in it. That's it for us here at Pulse K Games. Thanks. See you next time. Like, subscribe, and we'll update you on some of the other projects we're working on. Last and certainly not least,